Is it ever appropriate to be inappropriate? I'm with Dr. Peter Duffy, who is Director of Cardiovascular Quality at the Reid Heart Center in Pinehurst, North Carolina. That was one of your titles for a presentation here at the Cardiovascular Summit. Is it ever appropriate to be inappropriate?
Briefly, the answer to that is yes. The appropriate use criteria were set up more to give folks direction on how to handle particular cases, but not necessarily be a cookbook on how everything should be done. And there are clearly exceptions to the appropriate use criteria when we would deem a patient by those criteria to be inappropriate, yet feel that for that particular individual it's the right thing to do with going ahead with a procedure that might otherwise not be indicated by the criteria.
One of the things Dr. Douglas said, who's a past president of the ACC in a session with you, is she said the appropriate use criteria is not meant to be a grade, but it is meant to what?
It's meant to be an educational tool, a tool for you to look at and try to put into perspective what it is that you're doing with a patient and allow others, third-party payers and other interested parties, to, when they view what you did with a patient, understand how you took care of a patient, understand what your thought process was there. And the key really in all these cases is documentation. The vast majority of the time when a case is deemed inappropriate, if we go back and find the documentation of what led the physician to do what the physician did under that circumstance, by and large, we find out that really was the right thing to do. The problem is really with documentation. So it's an educational process that would get kicked back to the physician. It would say it's deemed inappropriate based on the fact that we don't have the information, or the information we provided is not provided in a context that we can really understand. If you can give us the information in that context, it probably can be deemed appropriate.
You underscored knowing the definitions, so that there's somebody who actually goes through these and makes sure that what is being put down is actually what happened.
Right, and that's critical for any kind of data collection process. What I said was that the data really is the currency of quality, and if you don't have good currency, if you don't have good data, you cannot have good quality, because that's what we learn from. We learn from the information that we're given. We take that information, we analyze it, we determine how we can improve our process, improve our performance based on it, and then we reanalyze when we look back to see if we're making the improvements that we really wanted to have. So the key really is the data to start with. If you don't have good data, you cannot have a good quality program.
Because appropriate use criteria are sometimes used, or at least they are felt to be used in a negative way, one of the things you talked about is there is a need for enthusiasm in order to collect this data and report it properly. How do you get people enthusiastic about this topic?
Well, I think they have to embrace the fact that we need to improve quality overall. And if you think about it, again, data has to be the currency that we use to make those improvements there. So every physician wants to do better. So if you want to do better, you need to learn where you are to start with. And if you know where you are at that point, you can then move on and do better. So I think rather than pushing away data and saying that it's only there to hurt me, we really, when we learn how it can be used in a very positive way, can really enhance patient care. And that's what we're all here for to start with.
You also pointed out that medicine is an art, but healthcare is a business, and sometimes you have to focus on the business.
Absolutely. But I think when you're with the individual patient, it's an art. You're working with that patient, with that particular patient situation. But when you think about how you're going to set up systems, you really have to recognize that it's a business.
And in your case, one of the things you noted was that you're supposed to be, you've moved into kind of administrative level 2, where maybe 80% of your time is clinical and 20% is administrative. Hasn't quite worked out that way?
Right, and I think what most of us have found is that it's not 80% clinical and 20% administrative. It's 100% clinical and 30% administrative. So it's been an interesting experience.
But it's something that has to be done. The doctor has to be involved, or it's not going to come out right.
Absolutely. When you talk to the people who want to be change agents who are not physicians, I don't believe they're really not well-intentioned. They really are well-intentioned, but they just don't understand what it is that we try to do on a daily basis there. Physicians are the ones who are best poised to be able to move into an administrative role, because administrators really can't move into a clinical role.
Well, the 2013 Cardiovascular Summit in Las Vegas has been a phenomenal meeting. We're still in the middle of it. Go to CardioSource World News, though, because we have all of the coverage from this particular meeting. For CardioSource World News, I'm Executive Editor Rick McGuire.